President Obama announced earlier today that more troops will stay in Afghanistan than originally planned. In a statement earlier, the president said that he would draw down troops to 8,400 by the end of his administration. His initial target was 5,500.
Yeah, the president said that the security situation remains precarious and that this new strategy is, quote, in our national security interests.
Compared to the 100,000 troops we once had there, today fewer than 10,000 remain. And compared to their previous mission, helping to lead the fight, our forces are now focused on two narrow missions: training and advising Afghan forces and supporting counter-terrorist operations against the remnants of al-Qaeda, as well as other terrorist groups, including ISIL.
Let's bring in Ambassador Christopher Hill. He is the former U.S. ambassador to Iraq, and he joins us now on the telephone. Ambassador Hill, what did you make of the president's remarks?
Well, I think on the face of them, it's pretty clear that the Taliban has been resurgent. There are more and deadly attacks, and I think an effort really to put pressure on even urban centers. So I think the president has decided we can't simply allow this to become Saigon 1975, and we have to stay longer and with a bigger footprint. Of course, the issue is always, if we don't leave now, when are we going to leave? What's going to be better in the future that isn't happening now? But I think the president simply made a decision that we cannot afford to see an Afghanistan in complete turmoil at this point, and so he's decided to stay with a much bigger footprint. And the whole choreography of the session today was to show that the military is very much behind him on this.
Ambassador, you know, the president said that the mission remains the same, sort of a two-pronged, very narrow mission to continue training and advising Afghan forces, and then also to continue to target the remnants of al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups in the area. I'm wondering if that's good enough, if perhaps this is an indication that the mission may be too narrow.
Well, I mean, I think when you hear the term training and these types of specialized missions, you can assume that it's sort of everything up to and not including sort of large battle formations. That is, I think we would be, helping them a lot with sort of small squad developments, and also the crucial aspect of targeting Taliban formations from the ground. And I think the idea of equipping and training is a long history in sort of post-World War II U.S. deployments. It's certainly what was going on early in the Vietnam War. And I think some people feel that it's not only not enough, but for some people it's already too much. So I think, with this divided nation of ours, with the opinions all over the map, I mean, goodness knows what Donald Trump will say tomorrow or today, or I should say tweet about this. I think the president has decided to try to, walk this very fine line.
Ambassador Hill, right now, the war in Afghanistan has become America's longest war. Back in 2008, when then candidate Obama was campaigning, he vowed to end the war, clearly understanding that situations on the battlefield are fluid and they change. Was that perhaps a mistake to announce that he was trying to end the war by reducing all of the numbers of troops? And does this look like we're going to see something like what we have similarly in Japan or in Korea, where we just have an endless a number of years that we spend in a country to help maintain security and stability in a foreign land?
Well, I can imagine a long deployment. Unfortunately, I mean, you're talking to someone who served in South Korea a couple of times, including as ambassador. This looks nothing like what is going on in South Korea, which has one of the world's most capable fighting forces on its own, and America's making a commitment to the continued defense of South Korea with the residual troops that we have. This looks a lot like in Afghanistan, a country that is really having serious governance issues, has serious corruption problems, is unable to have the central government in Kabul, extend its reach, except in a very kind of cynical way out to these villages. So we have a country that is, I would say, almost ungoverned and perhaps ungovernable. And I think the president simply doesn't want to see it collapse on his watch. So as for the question of whether we should have telegraphed these reductions. I think the president will get a lot of critics, starting with people like John McCain, that he's had the wrong policy to begin with. You never should have indicated when you were going to leave. I think the president's concern, however, has been he has a very large constituency in this country who would like to see us out lock, stock, and barrel, who've never understood, except in the broader context of international terrorism, who've never understood what the American interests are. So, it's a tough sell, and I think what the president will need to have is some serious support on the Republican side. And for anyone who's not been in a coma, they know that we are in an election year, and I think this will be a tough time.
Ambassador, just give us a sense of what's happening there. We're hearing that this is a response to an uptick in Taliban activity. What's occurring, and why is there an uptick now?
Well, the Taliban is clearly not a broken force. They've had their divisions that are incapable of being reconciled. But I think the Taliban is capable of wreaking havoc in urban areas, and I think they've shown that. And I think there's a little bit of an effort to sort of show that they are there, and they want historically to be seen as chasing the Americans out. And so I think the dynamic on the ground, combined with a government that is really having trouble meeting the financial requirements of this large force that we've helped create for them, I think it adds up to a situation where we're not seeing the progress we would have liked to see.
Ambassador Hill, before we let you go, we've been talking about the military options here. I want to ask you, though, you mentioned something interesting in your comments, which is that today Afghanistan is practically ungovernable. But there was a time, sir, back in the 70s, the mid-70s, when Kabul, for example, was considered the Paris of the Central East. There was a sense that Afghanistan, even if it was just a semblance of a national government, was capable to do something like that. What will it take to get back there?
Well, I think that's very true, and in fact, if you talk to, for example, former Peace Corps volunteers, we had Peace Corps volunteers as late as the 70s, and they described Afghanistan. I mean, these were people out in the rural areas, and they described it as a difficult place, a place with sort of rampant poverty. But this idea of wanton violence that we've seen is a more modern issue. And so I think there is reason to believe that at some point, as the cycle of history moves around, we'll have a country that is not characterized by this hideous violence that has gone on there for some 30 years. But 30 years is a long time, and so you're kind of betting on some kind of return to a more peaceful country without really the notion of how that return is going to be affected. There are those who think you ought to bring back royalty, but actually Afghanistan under a king was not better governed, and I'm not sure that would be enough, or that would be what the doctor ordered in terms of this highly motivated, highly Islamicized Taliban organization. So I think it's, there's no clear alternative right now, and I think the president just sees a clear deterioration in these months and doesn't want to see it culminate in a sort of Saigon 1975. So this is a tough thing to happen, but if you look at what's happened in Iraq with the continued sectarian divide, with the continued violence, especially on the part of the Sunnis, kind of different dynamics from Afghanistan, but surely one which suggests there has not been much progress. And so I don't think the president wants to be 0 for 2 on these two wars, regardless of whether he started them or the previous administration did.
All right, Ambassador Hill, thank you so much for speaking with us, sir. We appreciate it.